We're back, and the trade deadline is right upon us as it is on Friday. By the time this comes out, we've got a couple of days before the trade deadline, so we are talking all things deadline related, and today we're going over 9 trades we'd like to see happen at or before the deadline. Obviously, some will kind of trickle in before the deadline, some will trickle in after the deadline as is, and we are going live all day on Friday starting at 8 a.m. and going until about 4:30 to kind of react to everything in real time. So that's coming your way as well. We're excited to do another live stream because we did a lot of those over the Olympics. But it's a very exciting time right now. It's Luca, it's Jesse, it's Poc. Let's just get right into it. We've had some trades already happen, but we each have 3 trades kind of prepared, or 3 players, and trying to play a little matchmaker here. TSN's trade bait board has Kadri atop the list. There's about 40 players on that trade bait board, though, so there's a lot of options to choose from. We have 9 different players, which is nice, but we can talk about team fits and go over that when each of us does bring up a player. So where do we want to start here?
I just want to say before we get started, trade deadline is always a fun time of the year. Last year, with the whole Rantanen saga, it was so unprecedented. I remember how excited we were the night before and how much drama that situation kind of brought on the NHL.
I hate that word, unprecedented. I hate it.
It was unprecedented.
I just hate that word.
All right. Well, something that was also a little bit unprecedented because we had not had the Olympics in 12 years in the NHL was this trade freeze before the Olympic break. And we saw guys like Artemi Panarin, urgency to get that deal done before the trade freeze. So I was kind of thinking this year, like, maybe the deadline's not going to be as exciting because teams were going to deal before that trade freeze. But if you look at the trade bait board, and when we talk about some of the guys we're going to talk about today, there are a lot of big names that could potentially be dealt on Friday. So
Austin Matthews?
No.
I'm just kidding.
Jesse has to bring up Austin Matthews in every podcast.
I mean, you never know, but yeah, probably not. Although it is.
No, we know.
It is feeling more and more likely that there's at least a chance that he could be traded in the next couple of years. I don't know. We'll see.
All right, let's start with your first player, Poc. Who are you kind of shipping out, and what is the dream destination in this scenario for you?
First, I want to look at the Nashville Predators, and I've kind of been calling for a teardown with them for some time now, and I don't know if we're going to quite see that because Steven Stamkos has kind of come out and said that he doesn't want to go anywhere, but I at least think you got to get some value for Ryan O'Reilly, especially because his contract's a lot more movable than someone with term left like Steven Stamkos. And if we're talking about the player, Ryan O'Reilly, I know he's a little bit older now, but just how valuable he can be for a team that's making a playoff run. He can play a third-line center role very, very well. He's great on faceoffs, great in the defensive zone. He can also give you a lot of offense. So I think even at his age, this is an incredibly valuable asset, and it makes a lot of sense for Nashville to look to cash in on this. And a landing spot that I can't believe I'm going to say this, that I would love to see him go to is the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Interesting.
I know Sidney Crosby's dealing with an injury right now, and that's going to kind of hinder them a little bit. But they're red hot. They are very much in the thick of things. Seems like they're going to make the playoffs, and I honestly think they have a good chance to even win a round. You only have a couple more years left of Crosby. We've always talked about how Dubas has the hardest job in the NHL and how to assess this roster, whether they should be in win-now mode, whether they should look to retool and get younger. You know what? We got 1 month left in the season. You're second place in the Metro. Just go for it, man. Go out and get Ryan O'Reilly. Your forward group can need some depth, especially at center, and I think he can make a huge impact in Pittsburgh.
They haven't been shy to make moves, and Sam Girard one was pretty interesting, trading Kulak for Girard. I don't know how that kind of works out for them in the long run because of Girard's kind of capabilities, but they get another puck mover back there, which is kind of the identity of their blue line when you look at the pieces they have with Letang and with Karlsson. It's a lot of guys that are pretty good two-way defensemen and a little more offensive-minded, but if anything, Kyle Dubas has shown that, yeah, he's willing to make some deals. Do you think this pushes the needle in the excitement level, though, that you want, or is this just like a move that is kind of inconsequential, and then you're on the books for O'Reilly next year, another year at $4.5 million?
Again, $4.5 million with the cap going up is pretty manageable.
It's extremely manageable.
I just think, like, when have we seen a year where the East has been this wide open? And I know Tampa's looked really good.
It's a fair point.
But, like, who else, if you're Pittsburgh, who is scaring you right now where you're like, oh my gosh, yeah, we're going to make the playoffs, but we really don't feel like we have the chance to go on a run? Anyone can go on a run this year. We're talking about Buffalo being second in the Atlantic and looking really good. We're talking about a young Habs team in the playoffs. The Red Wings back in the playoff mix for the first time in a long time. The Islanders had the first overall pick last year, and they're in a playoff spot as well. Just go for it. Go out and get an experienced guy like Ryan O'Reilly who's won a Stanley Cup, who knows what it takes. I'm sure Crosby would love another guy like that in the locker room, and just cash in on whatever you have left with Sidney Crosby.
Yeah, isn't that kind of what Kyle Dubas' whole thing was supposed to be? He was supposed to kind of maximize those final years of the Crosby and the Malkin era, and I don't hate that at all, Poc. I think it's I think that's a good fit. I wonder if there are more center needy teams that would be willing to give up a little more.
I imagine Nashville probably wants a young player, prospect potentially. And O'Reilly's having a really good season production-wise, almost a point per game player this year. So it's an impact player that, you're right, like other center needy teams may be able to bid more, but the Penguins do have a lot of draft capital. And if you're Nashville, they've had a good year this year, but the Penguins have been a team that's missed the playoffs a bunch lately. So maybe this is a team that you can take advantage of some of those draft picks, and you look at the kind of future of this team. Is this the last year that we see them in the playoffs? Is this the last kind of run? Do they have another year in them? It's a good dice roll to take on draft picks and how high they could potentially be given what we've seen from them. So
yeah, I don't think anyone's going to blame the Penguins if they go out and make a splash by trying to get O'Reilly.
They should.
While Crosby's kind of still in this, playing at an amazing level. That's a good fit.
Let's move on to trade number 2, and we'll go to you for that one, Jess.
All right, so a very hot name right now that apparently might be on the block is Robert Thomas. And, we're talking about, truly one of the better centers in the NHL. So I guess I'm looking at Robbie Thomas, and there have been some rumors. I know people have been talking about the Mammoth potentially being a fit, and I get it. I think the Mammoth's top 6 is still really solid. They do have some good prospects they could give up. I don't know. Minnesota, I think, is another interesting team. I don't know what they would have to give up to get a player like Robert Thomas. I don't know if they have quite have the assets. A team to me that I think just makes a lot of sense is the Detroit Red Wings. This is a team that's been really playing well this year, and they are a team that I think could use a little more center depth. If we're talking about who really needs a center, they also have some really good players that they could dish for Thomas. There's been rumors that the Blues want a massive package for Robert Thomas. I mean, he's very good two-way forward, but they have those pieces. I mean, the Red Wings have 2 of the best goalie prospects in the league right now. You look at St. Louis, probably, I know we might get to this later, I think Binnington is as good as gone, or could be kind of soon. Hofer's good. I don't know if you want to just put all your eggs in that basket. Maybe you move a guy like Augustine in a package deal. Maybe Nate Danielson's at play there. I don't know. But maybe you move both of them for a guy like Thomas. But I just think that the Red Wings could really solidify that top 6 with a nice center. I just don't really think they have the depth other than Larkin right now.
Some of the stuff that's kind of come out about the Blues and what they want for Thomas is pretty astronomical.
Yeah.
It could be one of the kind of bigger trade returns we see if they do end up dealing him. And another team that's kind of come up with that mix, and I want to ask you about it, is the Montreal Canadiens. A lot of people are saying that Michael Hayes, because you have him in the wings, doesn't mean he is going to turn into Robert Thomas, so it shouldn't exactly preclude you from making that deal. That said, though, what would you do? Would you, if he is part of that trade package, want to see that? Because then you get your 2C. What Thomas is as an NHL player. He's a really good player.
And he's on an extremely reasonable contract. He's on year 3 of an 8-year deal where he's getting paid, I believe, $8.125.
Yeah,
correct.
So there's great value in Thomas. And that's a guy that what you have. He kind of accelerates, I know to add on that, Haig, I would imagine he's going to become this really good player, but Thomas is kind of already that player, and Montreal seems to be in a win now period. I don't think I would do that personally. I would roll with Haig, but that's me.
Well, it's
what I heard was
him
Haig
plus as well.
I heard Gouli too was a name, and I would not do that.
No.
Gouli's one of their best defensemen. He's still 23 years old.
Yeah.
If I'm Montreal, this is just bigger picture about Montreal. I'm sure we'll talk about them in another trade. I would literally just sit tight. Hughes and Gordon have done such a good job getting so much young talent. You're ahead of schedule in my mind. No point of giving up young assets to try to rush the process. Kadri's a name that's been floated around with the Habs as well. They have so much forward depth that I think honestly Patrick Laine might be a scratch when he comes back in playoffs. If they don't even look, maybe they'll look to trade him. He's a UFA. Maybe they'll look to trade him. I don't know.
They should trade Laine.
They have so many forwards right now. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me to give up some young assets. But the Robert Thomas thing is really interesting because, like you said, that contract is extremely affordable. But there's also no rush or urgency on St. Louis's end to move him.
It's true.
And that's why I kind of feel like if you're going to do a deal of this magnitude, kind of get all the information you can get and just sit on it for another month or two, wait to the offseason and move him there. Because he's not a rental. So there's no okay, we have to trade him now, otherwise we're getting nothing from him. But it is a weird one where you look at big picture, what's going on in St. Louis. This is a team that made the playoffs last year. Then there obviously was the Jordan Kyrou rumors in the summer that were very big, thinking they'll trade him before his contract kicks in. And now you got two players in their prime in Kyrou and Thomas who are both on reasonable deals that for some reason aren't being viewed as pieces of the future. But then it's who are your pieces of the future if this is a guy you're looking to move? I don't know. I have a lot of questions for St. Louis right now, and I'm interested to see how this kind of all plays out. And
what are your guys' thoughts on Detroit?
I like it as a landing spot. We've talked about Detroit, and I think one kind of criticism we've put out with them is they're a bit of a one-line, top-heavy team in terms of DeBrincat and Raymond and Larkin, how good they've been. So Detroit, to me, they could use some depth. They can use more scoring down their lineup. And they also have so many good prospects that from a St. Louis angle, yeah, I'd be interested in negotiating a deal with these guys with the amount of top-end talent they've drafted in recent years.
I'd agree with that completely. Let's move on to number 3, and I'll give my first one here. May as well just talk about Montreal because we're already on the topic, and I've got Kadri going to them to fill that 2C spot. I feel like you don't like that, and it's not the kind of sexiest pick. I just am having trouble playing matchmaker with Kadri because I think the Avalanche are going to be, because that's the other popular destination for him, and I really do think that he's kind of priced himself out of Colorado with the Makar extension in the not so distant future that's coming, and how much kind of term and money he has left. I think they're going to be less willing to take that money on right now, whereas Montreal, I think, might be more willing to, and I don't think it's the worst thing in the world to have him where Montreal is as a team right now. I know they're looking for center depth. I also don't think that he will be a block for the young talent that they have coming up after this year. I don't think he's a player that is just he has to play 2C and that's his role. I think he's a pretty adaptable player and a really great player to have on your team when kind of the big games happen in the playoffs. He's a Stanley Cup champion. I think he might be a really good voice in that locker room going into their first iteration of this playoff run, but also in the future for the next couple of years that they have him on the books, he can allow them to kind of grow a little bit and take on more of a leadership role than they have currently on the roster because it is a young roster. And so those are kind of the things that they might not sound like sexy kind of traits to want to trade for, especially given what you might have to give up and the money ramifications.
What do you think you'd have to give up?
I really don't know. I really don't know. Significantly less than Robert Thomas, I would assume. And if the Avs are kind of shopping in that, then I imagine it might be a first-round pick, potentially a second. But I don't think it's that much because Colorado, again, doesn't really have a lot of assets. So I think Calgary is just looking at this situation to try and get what they can before he turns another year older, and maybe his play declines even more next year given the situation that he's in. Doesn't mean that he's declining as a player, but more just if his situation keeps getting worse in Calgary, then how much value are you losing by keeping him rather than trading him now?
What's his contract right now? What year is he into that deal?
He's got 3 years left rather, at $7 million. So it's a pretty hefty price tag for sure. But
Montreal's just in this weird phase because they're just it just seems like they're waiting for Hague and it just seems like he's kind of gonna.
I don't know if they're necessarily waiting for like Michael Haig's a great prospect, but everyone's talking about Montreal right now. They need a 2C. They need a little bit more depth. And I don't know if I necessarily agree with that when like dissecting their roster. Obviously, your first line is Suzuki and Caulfield, and Kirby Dach's been playing on the wing since he came back from injury. That's a guy who can also play center, so he's another option.
Could be in a trade package.
And then you look at their second line, which to me was their best line going into the Olympic break, and that's Slavkovsky, Demidov, and Kapanen. The oldest player on that line is like 22 years old. Mm-hmm. They've been putting up a ton of points. To me, that's a line of the future where it's like you bring in Kadri, now you got to move Kapanen down the lineup. Don't necessarily know how well he fits there. And then they also made a trade for Phillip Danault, which I don't think a lot of people are talking enough about. Phillip Danault is going to be a massive, massive two-way guy that can impact the team in the playoffs. And I know his offense is dried up a little bit, whereas when he went to the Kings right away, he was scoring 20 goals year after year. But between Phillip Danault and Jake Evans, and then you also have a guy, Alex Newhook.
Are we going to call Danault like a two-way guy at this point, or is he going to be a guy that like, you really lean on defensively?
He's your third-line center.
Yeah.
He's your third-line center. Jake Evans, to me, is one of the best fourth-line centers in the NHL. You also have Alex Newhook playing on the wing right now, who last year, when Kirby Dach got hurt, played center the whole second half of the season. So, to me, Montreal almost has like more options than actual roster spots right now. So, to give up, I don't think Calgary would be able to demand a Michael Hage. No. But if it's like Alexander Zarovsky even, or
what about Kapanen?
Anyone, Oliver Kapanen, I wouldn't do that. It's just like these are your guys. They're 22 years old. 5 years from now, Oliver Kapanen is still going to be a really good player. If he's already playing on the second line now, 5 years from now, Kadri, first you got to pay him $7 million a year. 2, he's not going to be in the NHL.
It's a fair way to look at it. You did say that the East is pretty wide open too, so they're in a really interesting position because
thing is though, if they don't win this year, it's fine.
Oh, for sure,
yeah,
for sure.
At Pittsburgh, you want to go all out.
Absolutely, but there's also two schools of thinking about it where it's like, is the East going to be this wide open again? And you're hoping your team improves and continues to improve, that they'll still be in the conversation every year. But you never know when those opportunities are going to kind of come your way as a team. And if you can get a little better without giving up too much, it's a tough balance, especially in the first year of like this kind of playoff window that's going to be open this year. Those are kind of the things you're grappling with.
Montreal could go all the way this year. Like, there's no reason to think that they can't make a push. And, like, maybe if they do add a guy like Kadri with Stanley Cup experience, maybe that would be a nice fit for them. But yeah, I don't know.
Who's your second one there, Poc?
Let's talk about Jordan Binnington now, because we talked a little bit about St. Louis, and Binnington to Montreal has been a very, very hot rumor as of late. Also, Binnington does have a 14-team no move, so that's another kind of layer to this that we don't know which teams are on his list. So all of this is speculation when it comes to the future of him, but it feels like St. Louis wants to move him. His value is, this is funny, his value is never going to be higher, even though he's statistically the worst goalie in the NHL this year. But because of how good he's been for Team Canada at the Olympics, Binnington has all the buzz. A lot of teams think that if you bring him into your crease in big moments in the playoffs, he can help you win a cup. He's done that with St. Louis. All that's fair. Montreal needs goaltending help. I don't think it's the right move to go out and try to get a guy like Binnington. Is it weird to say Edmonton?
Not at all.
Because Edmonton, they tried it with Jari. They moved Skinner. And I think we can already say hasn't worked. Edmonton is drowning right now in the West. San Jose can pass them with their games in hand. They're the 8th seed. Things are not looking good. And I think
they just made a good trade for Murphy. I mean, that was pretty big. And then if you couple like some decent goaltending with that back end, I mean, that could be a team to look out for in the playoffs, obviously, because it's the Oilers and we know what they're capable of.
But it feels like our patience is sort of starting to wane, where it's like, how many years can you sustain looking shaky, fumbling their way into the playoffs and really not looking like a deep team or that much of a threat, and then just saying like, okay, it's the playoffs. Draisaitl and McDavid will win you these series. They're going to score, 15 points every series, and you're going to get to the cup. It's been a great formula when you have the 2 of the 4 best players in the world. It works, but I don't know. I just think go out and get Jordan Binnington, even though he's statistically way worse than what you have right now. He's a proven goalie. I'm sure McDavid liked being with him in the Olympics. Go out and try and make a move. Do something, because the moves that they have made right now in the crease, I applaud them for trying, but it seems like they continuously still have a big question mark in goal.
I ask again, though, like, what do the Oilers give up in a trade like that?
It's Binnington's value is one of the biggest mysteries in the NHL to me. Because are you trading Jordan Binnington, the Olympian, or Jordan Binnington, who has an 8-18-4 record this year and a brutal save percentage, goal save above expected, near the bottom of the league? If it's not the bottom,
It's the bottom.
It's the bottom
By a healthy margin, by 6.
And he's making $6 million a year. He's got 1 year left. What's the middle ground in this negotiation? Like, when Doug Armstrong gets the phone call, he can only talk up his value so much as this, like, Team Canada goalie, like a champion.
Clear some space.
Edmonton might be the perfect team to talk that up to, because
they need a goalie.
Well, not only do they need a
but
goalie,
they also
but
just don't have a lot to give in terms of prospects, right?
they don't. They're kind of strapped for cash as well, and so that's obviously kind of going to come into play. But yeah, I think when you're talking about Binnington, it's very funny, because it's like you can sell him as this, like, yeah, big games, bright lights, like he's going to be there and be incredible. And Edmonton has gone to 2 Stanley Cup finals now and have lost both, and goaltending has been an issue in the playoffs and the regular season. So, like, if there's a team that you could make a case, the best case to sell them on, and maybe giving up, I mean, I don't know what you'd have to give up, because you're right, his value is a mystery, but that's kind of the perfect team that I would say, like, that's the story you're telling them, is that this has been your missing piece. Once you get him, there's no way you lose, because you've got McDavid, you've got Draisaitl, and you've got the best big game goalie of all time. So, like,
and a pretty good blue line. Like, is this the best decor that McDavid's ever had?
No more Brett Kulak. Hurts a little bit, you know.
It's good. Like, I don't know, it's good. I wouldn't say it's, like, amazing.
I'm just saying, is it the best that McDavid's ever had while he's been there? I think you can make an argument that it is.
Yeah, you can make an argument that it is, for sure. I still, overall, it's
Bouchard's
not amazing.
Bouchard's been insane this year.
Bouchard's been great, but you still have Darnell Nurse of it all.
Well, that's the glaring.
I mean,
that's their most expensive defense. I guess now
Ekholm.
Bouchard makes more, but yeah.
Ekholm, Murphy, their defense is.
It's solid.
It's not bad.
I don't think it's a strength by any means of their team.
I think it's the strongest they've had in probably a little bit.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think it's a strong decor as far as what they're used to, but I don't think that's that's saying a lot, I guess, is what I mean by that, because I don't think it's still at a place where you can lean on it consistently and feel like you have one of the stronger decors of any playoff team, probably. Let's move on to your next one, Jess.
All right, so I was originally going to talk about how the Jets are going to get a first-round pick for Logan Stanley, but you know what? I think there are some bigger fish to talk about here, which would be pretty crazy, honestly, as a Jets fan, if you told me that we were going to get a first-round pick for Logan Stanley last summer.
And he was a first-round pick, too. So all these years later, you just get
I mean, good for him, and I hope that he gets a nice contract in the summer. He's been playing really well. But I know that the Jets do have some good up-and-coming D, and I don't know if they would re-sign Stanley to a big contract. But
so you are talking about Logan Stanley?
Well, I for a little bit. Okay. Another player I'm going to talk about is Elias Pettersson. You want to talk about like a polarizing player right now as far as the deadline goes? I think this guy is like, you know, Binnington also is one of those guys that it's like you can make an argument for both. Pettersson, to me, is like a really interesting one, because we know that he is capable of being a great player in the league, and it might just be a situational thing that, like, maybe he needs to change of scenery to be really good. And that's why if you're Vancouver, you're like, oh, I still want good value for this guy. But at the same time, he's making $11.6 million per year. He really hasn't been very good the last 2 years. Vancouver's in this weird place where, like, they probably need to just, like, completely rebuild. They already got rid of Hughes. They should get rid of Pettersson. I think that they could even continue getting rid of other players. And I just think that clearing $11.6 million makes a lot of sense for them. And I think that the Carolina Hurricanes, for their 2C spot, may absolutely make sense. I think Pettersson in that top 6 would be really good. He's kind of like a missing piece in that puzzle. And I think Carolina would be able to make this work. The question is, how much would Carolina actually give up? I don't know. Like, I've seen packages saying that the Canucks should get a haul for him, and then I'm just thinking, like, I don't really think the Canucks should get a haul for him. Given how he's playing and the amount of money that he's getting paid, like, I think originally they had like Stankoven and a first and maybe another.
Poor Stankoven.
Yeah, and then another conditional pick for him. Like, I think a team would almost, as good as, I think I had like Stankoven a first, another conditional first, but I don't know. I'm curious to hear what people have to say. We know that Pettersson could be a great player, and you don't want to like trade a guy like that and be like, oh man, we should have gone way more for him. But like, he just hasn't really been working in Vancouver. I just don't really know what his value is being perceived as by other teams in the league.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I just think, like, pull up the TSN trade rate board and you'll scroll through. You'll see a bunch of big names. But if you look in the term section, this is where it gets really interesting, because obviously it's a trade rate board. At the deadline, you see a lot of guys who are UFAs get moved. And as you scroll, it's mostly UFAs, and then you start to see one guy's on a 6-year term, one guy's got 7 years left, one guy's got 5 years left.
Petey's in year 2.
And guess what? The theme with all these guys is they all play for the Canucks.
Yeah.
The state of this organization right now, to me, is a disaster. They have so many questions to answer about the team that they're going to be in the future. They're in the McKenna sweepstakes right now. It has not been good, but you have all these players that theoretically should be in their prime that you just signed. Pettersson, Besser again had that great quote of like, well, it's the deadline time when my name's in trade talks. I don't know what they're going to do, but it also feels like if they're selling these guys now, you're selling these assets at the lowest that they've ever been in their careers. A couple years ago, we were saying that Pettersson deserves this $11 million. The Canucks need to do everything they can to keep him, and it was such a worry that maybe they weren't going to be able to. He signed that contract, and it's just really fallen downhill since then. And the same with Brock Besser. And Jake DeBrusk is part of that group too. These guys all have Connor Garland.
Yeah. And they're all having their worst years.
I don't know. It's very hard to manage these assets now as the GM of the Canucks, because you kind of feel the rebuild coming. But with all these guys with term, it's hard to sell them and actually get value for the ceiling of the player that they are. So I don't know what the Canucks are going to do. But I like the Carolina spot.
Carolina spot makes a lot of sense for sure. It's tricky on both ends, because like Stankoven is, I think, a player. I mean, he was the main piece of kind of the Rantanen return that people were excited about, and it's been a struggle this year in Carolina. He hasn't really filled that desired top 6 role that I'm sure that they were hoping for. And look, he's still a young player. He's only 23 years old, but this was kind of always the reality with him, where I think like he's a really useful and skilled player, but he is also pretty small, and I don't know how much of a game breaker he is. Yeah. Maybe he's more suited for a middle 6 role, second and third line, than he is kind of penciled in as the top 6. But then if you're Vancouver, is that headline piece enough in a trade? Like, probably not. If I'm trading Pettersson, even at his value right now,
you got some draft picks in there too, though.
Absolutely, yeah. But I think I still probably want someone that has a little more promise, that hasn't gotten a shot in the NHL yet, that you could look at and say, hey, this prospect has a little more of a higher ceiling than Stankoven, given what we've seen from him so far.
So I was thinking about that, and I'm thinking like Carolina could part ways with like Nadeau. He's been really good in the AHL, and like I thought about that, and like who knows, maybe a guy like is Nikishin a guy that I feel like we've heard that Carolina would part with, but again, and like this isn't. And maybe, and I don't mean to like disrespect Petey too much, but it's like he wasn't good last year. He hasn't been good this year.
It's true. What is his value?
What's his value?
It's not just 1 year of this. It's 2 years of this now.
It's for a team to take on $11.6 million of cap space in year 2 of a deal that he has not been good on throughout this deal is a risk. It's a risk, and some Canucks fans will probably say, okay, we're going to get rid of him. That's going to clear a lot of money for us, and we're going to rebuild right now. And if Carolina wants to there is a little risk with taking on that contract, and that's why I don't know if the haul for Petey would be that big. I like Pettersson, and I think even at the Olympics, he showed like why he is the player that he is, and I think in a better situation, he will be productive. But like, I don't know, man. He's a very complicated one for me.
Completely
I just
agree.
think that no matter what, when you sell a player like that with his cap hit and with his production as of late, you're probably going to be on the losing end of the trade. And when I say that, like, we'll see who wins the trade 5 years from now, but I'm talking like when we first read that report of the two sides and who's giving up what, we're probably all going to say, wow, that's all they got for Elias Pettersson, one of the most prolific scorers in the NHL, one of the most elite players who just hasn't been that the last couple of years. It's a very tough situation for the Canucks.
We've got 4 left here. I'll give you one to the Dallas Stars because they just kind of have suffered some injuries right now with Tyler Seguin on the shelf. And I know they don't have like a ton of money to work with, but I think they're probably in the business of trying to upgrade that forward group in some way, shape, or form, given how many injuries they're kind of dealing with right now. Obviously, Rantanen's out, Sagan's out, Rupe is day-to-day, so like he should be back. Rantanen should be back soon as well. But I don't think this team should be kind of stopped from making a move because you're going to get some guys back. So I've got Vinny Trocheck going to Dallas. I think it'd be a very useful player for their middle six. He can kind of play up and down the lineup as we saw in the Olympics. He's got very specific roles and skill sets that he does well. He's a guy that has kind of a proven playoff track record. He's been pretty damn good in the playoffs for New York when he's gotten those opportunities. He can play the penalty kill. He can play the power play. He can chip in offensively. I feel like he's a kind of attitude player as well that changes the DNA of your team a little bit. And I think with the Stars, it wouldn't surprise me when they look at this group to say, hey, like, I think we need a little more on offense, because I've kind of pointed it out all year long that most of the damage they do is on the power play. And at 5-on-5, they really haven't been one of those elite teams given where they are in the standings. And so I think that eventually catches up with you when you play against really good teams. And so to have a guy that's pretty defensively responsible on the puck, that can help out your special teams even more, and the cap hit is pretty modest. And when Seguin and Ben come off the books in the coming years, having a guy like Vinny Trocheck, I think, is only going to be an added value for this team going forward into the next iteration of what they're going to be. So I think that the fit does make sense. What the Rangers want for him, I don't know. Dallas has a first-round pick in 2027. They've got a couple of seconds as well in the next 2 years. So they also are kind of in trouble cap-wise. So I don't know how to make the money work exactly. And again, it's kind of why projections are tough. But when you're playing matchmaker, like they say, just if a team really wants a player, they'll figure out a way to do it. And if they identify someone, and Dallas has been an aggressive team at the deadline every single year, they always seem to add pieces. Obviously, Rantanen last year was the big kind of fish that they got. So I think adding another player to the top six will only do this team a better service, especially seeing that Colorado could make a move. Seeing that Minnesota obviously added Quinn Hughes, and they might not be done. We don't know what's kind of coming with them. So you got to load up to get out of the first round, let alone get to the Western Conference Final.
So that I was actually going to talk about Trocheck too. He was my number 3 guy, so I should probably just introduce him now.
Sorry, man. I didn't even realize. Was that a curveball you threw too? Or did you have him originally?
I had him.
Oh, that's my bad. That's my bad.
No worries. But I think, like, on topic, I think it makes for a great debate. If you don't mind, I'm just going to jump cut you here, Thomas, because I think you can add to the debate. I'm actually going with Minnesota.
There we go. I love it.
Because I think Trocheck to Minnesota. How many times we've been hearing about how much Bill Guerin loves Vincent Trocheck and all this stuff, and I think one thing that Trocheck has reportedly been open about is that he doesn't want to go to the West Coast. But I think going to a team like, I don't know, Dallas might be a little further. Excuse me, my geography isn't great.
They're not on Pacific time, at least. You got that going for you.
They're Central.
Well, and so is Minnesota.
Yep.
And I feel like, Minnesota's got that cold feel too. Maybe what he's used to. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what his thinking is, but I just think that if you look at teams that are like actually really, really desperate for center depth, it's the Wild. Like They just don't really have it. I think that after acquiring Hughes, that team is absolutely in. When have we ever seen the Minnesota Wild this serious of a Stanley Cup contending team? I don't think we've ever seen a Minnesota Wild team this good. I can't remember it at least. And this is a guy that does everything. Bill Guerin loves him, and I think that they could use another center. I think Trocheck would be a perfect fit there. And another team that I think would actually make a lot of sense for Trocheck is the Detroit Red Wings. Even Pittsburgh would make sense too. I mean, we could just list off all the teams we've been saying.
I'm sure a lot of
center.
teams would love to have Vincent Trocheck too.
Yeah, but I don't know. Minnesota, like if I just talk about actual needs and what teams, even though they don't have as much to give up anymore with their assets, what they actually need, like Minnesota is as desperate for center depth as any other team. I could also see Kadri going there. So
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know, but I do feel like Dallas is a very desirable place to want to go. You know, obviously, you got to take into account the state income tax stuff, and I feel like Dallas. I don't know. I just feel like players love going to Dallas, but I don't know, man. I feel like Minnesota's they're right there this year. They should just go for it.
It feels like one of those two teams is going to make a move to just try and outnumber the other in a way where it's like I don't know how to what end that's going to happen, because Quinn Hughes seems like the deal breaker of all deal breakers, but Dallas has got a counterpunch in here somewhere, and then does that make Minnesota do something else, because they're going to play each other in the first round?
That's the thing that raises the stakes all the more, because with this new playoff format, when you know who your direct competition is, when you know the pathway you need to take to make the playoffs,
how do you beat Minnesota is the only thing Dallas is thinking about right now.
When you're in a loaded division like the Central, it's all the more urgency to make a move, because if Minnesota doesn't trade for Trocheck and they know that, hey, if we don't do this, Dallas is, it almost like hurts you all the more if you don't make a move. So it creates more urgency. It kind of sucks that like these are two of the best 5 teams in the NHL. We know they're going to play each other in the first round.
I mean, 2 of the 3 of them are going to be out by the Western Conference Final, which is kind of crazy.
Also, like, is Hughes in the 5th year of his deal right now? Quinn Hughes?
He has 1 year left after
this year. Okay, so you just traded for Quinn Hughes. You just gave up a lot of your future. You're just gonna stop because you're not willing to get rid of like a few more prospects to get like a good player like Vincent Trocheck, who still has some term left, who does things that you really like for Billy Guerin as a general manager. I think like if you're Minnesota, you got to just keep going for it here, because otherwise, like, what are you doing trading for Hughes and then you're gonna fall short of Dallas or Colorado or whatever it is? Like, go for it. It's they can do it. I don't know.
Poc, let's go with your last one here, and then I'm gonna add one that we'll all do because I messed up that one.
No worries at all. I think it's actually good that we have different
debates
about Trocheck. It makes for a good, better conversation.
I'll add one more though that we'll all answer, of just like a player that if we could dream spot that player, we'll give a team each. So let's go with your last one, then I'll go with mine, and we'll get there.
All right, my last one. It's kind of the perfect depth scoring piece. Also a veteran cup winner, Blake Coleman. He's 34 years old, but he's still a very, very productive player. Calgary is going to look to move him. I think he's one of the obvious ones that if he's still in Calgary after the deadline, it's kind of like, what are you doing? And I think a team like Detroit, we talked about it. You talked about it when you were talking about Robert Thomas. I think it's going to be hard to maneuver a trade like that mid-season, and maybe they don't want to part with the level of asset that it would require to get a guy like Robert Thomas. But I think Blake Coleman can come in, play your third line on the wing, even fourth line. But when Tampa won the Cup, he was part of that third line that was just so dominant. And he's gone on to other places, and he still had a lot of success. And I think Detroit's in a unique spot, like we talked about with some of the other teams, where you kind of see the pathway of going on the run, and it's exciting to be in the playoffs for the first time. But they need some extra scoring down the lineup, and Blake Coleman can kind of do everything. So I love that spot.
Is that going to thread the needle? Like,
no,
if
but
you don't mind playing a little devil's advocate here, like, is Blake Coleman going to like thread the needle for the Red Wings?
But not everyone can just go out. Like, so many times we see the deadline adding a 7th defenseman or a third line winger or a 4th line center, and you already have your core, right? Like, we know how Detroit's their path. If they want to win the Cup, it's going to be with the guys they have in this room. I truly believe that. It's so rare to just go out and, okay, let's just trade all our assets and get Robert Thomas at the deadline. Those opportunities don't always come up.
But it's here.
Is it? Like,
apparently Robert Thomas is getting shopped.
To me, yeah, shopped is one thing. I'll say I would be stunned if Robert Thomas is traded on Friday. I think there's no urgency to move him now. He's in his prime. I think you can take the last month of the season to evaluate your roster a little bit more and then take the offseason to say, okay, how do we want to look in 5 years? Is it really smart to move off a player of this caliber at his age?
You're saying, though, that, like, the East is so wide open, and, like, Detroit might see that and be like, personally, I actually don't think that Detroit going to the Cup, I think they actually do need to add another big guy. I don't think that the guys that they have right now are as good as the other guys on Tampa. I don't know.
Okay,
Even some of the other
but
teams
Brian Burke said something the other day. I can't remember what show it was on, so forgive me for not giving the credit. But he goes, I checked with the NHL, and they confirmed that they're only giving out one cup this year. So there's 32 teams in the league, and that's it. It's a trade deadline, and 10 general managers who are kind of on the bubble of like, oh, maybe we can compete for the cup, are just supposed to run around with a bunch of chickens with their heads cut off and just trade everything to get a player at the deadline. Like, it's very possible Detroit could trade for Robert Thomas, and round one against the Sabres or round one against the Habs, they lose. So
that's a calculated risk with any trade that any team
I know,
makes
but
for a big
my point is,
the Minnesota Wild can lose in the
you
first round
don't-
after trading for Hughes.
a team like Detroit, it's your first trip back to the playoffs in almost a decade, if not a decade. You don't need to go all in. Whereas, like, just look at your roster. Okay, we can use some depth here. We can get some experience here. Blake Coleman comes in, third line winger. And
Okay,
it'll help.
but
you don't have to give up a lot.
But again, just to play devil's advocate, this isn't just like a one-time move for Detroit. It's like if a player like Robert Thomas is available, he's in year 3 of an 8-year deal. He has a very reasonable cap hit. This isn't just a deal to make for this. This is like you're adding a very good player to your core. And I actually think Detroit has the assets relative to other teams to make this work.
Yeah, like, I mean, I would.
Not saying that Coleman's not a good idea, by the way. I think Blake
Neither am I
Coleman's a great
saying
player.
we're making great use of this,
Yeah.
of this camera shot. I'm not.
About time.
I'm not saying that like it's trading for Robert Thomas is going to make your team worse as well. I was just more like defending the go out and get Blake Coleman because he'll help your team. Robert Thomas is obviously a great player. I would have to see, like, again, this is all speculation. I would be very interested in seeing what it would cost from a Detroit standpoint to make a trade like that happen.
They have that Norwegian guy who's been what's his name? Brands Nygaard.
They also have
he's been
like
great.
Sandin Pellikka could be someone that they can move.
They have Nate Danielson. They have 2 amazing goaltending prospects, which would be, I mean, you got to think one of them would be valuable for St. Louis. I mean, I think Detroit actually makes the most sense for Thomas. But hey, I digress.
We will see on Friday. My last one here, and I'll kind of make it quick before we move on, is Mackenzie Weegar to the Tampa Bay Lightning. Apparently Calgary's getting some calls on him. He's got a full no-move clause, but I think that Craig Conroy might approach him if they do get calls and things kind of become serious. He's got term, but I think out of all the right shot defensemen left, he kind of intrigues me the most, even though it's 5 years. 6.25 mil is pretty generous for a guy he's a really good player, very valuable player. Tampa Bay has kind of glued this D-Core together all year long, and they've had some incredible seasons from guys we didn't think, like Darren Radish and JJ Moser. But having Weegar to be another right-hand shot to play with Victor Hedman potentially in that top 4 really intrigues me. I feel like defensemen have thrived in this Tampa Bay system. Anyone they kind of plug and play there seems to play their best hockey, and Weegar is someone that likes to jump up in the play. I feel like he's probably a little underrated offensively, but he's a really good defenseman, and I think that if Calgary is serious about trying to rebuild, yes, it's a piece you might want to hold on to. You have kind of control over him. He gets to pick where he goes, so that will play some part in this. And you don't have to do it right now, obviously, but he's not part of your future when you're going to be good. So I think that if the right deal comes along and if Tampa can entice you enough that the right deal kind of makes itself available from them, if I'm the Lightning, I'm kind of pushing for it. And maybe that 2028 first-round pick they have is intriguing, because how long is this Lightning run going to go on for? You imagine the next 2 years it'll be good, but when we get into 2028, 2029, are they going to be as good as they are right now? You never know. It's not a bad dice throw to have at a first-round pick.
Do they have do the Lightning? I'm just curious what the Lightning have as assets. They just seem like. I mean, I know they've got Geeky, who's a stud. We love friend of the program. But I don't know. I feel like all this stuff is just like because I agree that Tampa Bay is a great fit. I mean, that would be perfect, and he's no stranger to playing in Florida too. But
he really does hold leverage where
Yeah,
if he
he has
wants
to-
to go
yeah.
to Tampa and Tampa calls and Weegar looks at the landscape of it and says, you know what, like, yeah, I want out. He's kind of got the leverage in that scenario to Calgary just has to get what they get at that point. It doesn't seem like he's going to do that, though. He hasn't made any indication that he wants out and he's kind of disgruntled or anything like that. But they did just deal Rasmus Anderson as well to Vegas. And so I wouldn't be surprised if he does kind of get some attention from Stanley Cup contenders. And
can Tampa afford him? Because they're
So
gonna
the
have to
thing
they're
is-
gonna have to pay Radish
Well,
like a ton
I mean,
of money.
Weegar at $6 million. Is there a world where, and I know Radish has had this like phenomenal season, but like this guy's gonna cash in? Is there a world where if you can make this trade with Weegar, that's your Radish replacement, and then like if you're gonna have to pay Radish like upwards of $8 million, maybe even more with how much production you got out of him this year, you just have Weegar at a cheaper price for the next couple of years because of the term he has on this contract. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it's kind of like an interesting way of thinking at this because
the Radish contract's interesting.
I
He's
know,
30
like,
years old,
how
and
much
this
is
is
he
his
gonna
best
get?
year. I know. That's what I mean. Like, I really don't know what he's going to get, and I
And
don't
what's
know
the
how.
term?
I think
gonna be
at
too.
least $8 million he's gonna get. Maybe I'm wrong.
I would do that on like a short term.
I
but
don't
I'm
even-
not
I
getting
don't
like
know
a
if I'd go 8.
7 year, $8 million contract. No way.
I think I'd
See.
go like 5.5.
I think
I
he's
need to
gonna- I think
see
he's
it
priced
more.
himself
I
way
think
out
he's
of
gonna
that.
make way more than 5.5.
Because if he hits the open market, teams will pay.
I think Tampa's gonna pay him. I think they'll probably just set maybe like 7 to 8.
Maybe
Like,
they
let's
get Blake
find
Coleman.
Let's find a reasonable.
Give him Blake
He was
Coleman.
pretty good last year too, if I'm not mistaken. Like Radish was, he
was good, but
productive
not this
last.
good.
He was productive last. Well, yeah, I mean, of course he's better this season. What about a team like Utah for Weegar? I don't know. I feel like
So Utah's another team that like Dougie Hamilton, Mackenzie Weegar
Yeah.
have kind of come up in as far as just they need puck moving defensemen, I think, and
they've got assets.
they do have assets, and that D core is not in a place where they can't make a move because we watched them play. It feels like they need some more
Defense.
depth on that back
For
end,
sure.
like John Marino as a player, but between him, Schmidt, Ian Cole, and Olimata as your and even Dursey is 5 of your 6 defensemen. I think there's room for upgrades there,
For sure.
especially on the right side. So a lot of interesting options to go over at the trade deadline.
Patty Laine to the Oilers.
I'm excited. Okay,
You can look great in the press box.
We're not
in the
gonna-
Cup final.
we're not going to give explanations for it, and I know Steven Stamkos said that he doesn't want to go anywhere. But if you could wish a place that Steven Stamkos would go, just give me a team, no explanation.
I'll be a hypocrite because I said the Habs shouldn't make a move, but bring him to the Habs.
I mean, that's a guy that you probably would be sick and wanting on the Habs.
I know they wouldn't be able to make it work, but I think the Oilers would be unbelievable.
Be awesome. I Dallas was kind of my original pick for him because I think that he would just kind of fit in really well with what they've got. So I'll go Dallas, and we're excited for the trade deadline that's coming up on Friday. Again, we've got a live stream at 8 a.m. until 4:30 or around there. So we'll have that kind of scheduled, and you'll see some promo for that. We said the Olympics are done. Paralympics are starting this weekend as well as Team Canada goes for another gold on the ice. So excited to cheer those teams on. And then I wanted to do this because I feel like the TSM family kind of sticks together in this. But shout out Claire Hanna. I know a lot of people have kind of given her a lot of heck for the questions that she was asking Brady Tkachuk, but I thought they were completely fair and totally professional, and they really spoke to what I think a lot of people weren't asking a lot of these American players since they've gotten back. I think a lot of people have just kind of allowed them to kind of take the mic and apologize if they want, whatever. But I think Claire did a really good job of humanizing what a lot of hockey fans were feeling in that moment, especially female hockey fans who that I think struck a nerve with, obviously, because they whatever the players say, like it's not only about what the women's team thought of that moment. It's about what hockey fans thought in that moment. And I think that Claire did just a wonderful job of following up with Brady and asking some really tough questions that as a woman in sports and as a female reporter, you're under a microscope already. So the backlash is not a surprise because I think there are a lot of bad people out there that are kind of giving her a hard time. But I think she's done an incredible job, and I think that those are really important questions to ask. And I applaud her for not backing down. So obviously as a member of the TSM family, but as an incredible reporter that she is, just shout out Claire Hanna. I don't know if you guys have anything to add to that, but I just wanted to give her a shout out because she's awesome.
Yeah, she did a great job, and Claire can ask the questions that she feels like she wants to ask. I agree. There was absolutely nothing wrong with what she asked, and I think we live in a world where people are really stupid and they can't help themselves, but use their thumbs to tweet really mean things. And don't let them bring you down, Claire, because you're great at your job and you did a great job at the Olympics.
Outstanding job at the Olympics, and I hope we did an outstanding job here, kind of dream making some of these matches that we want to see. I'm sure you'll let us know in the comments though where we got wrong and what you want to see at the trade deadline. So let us know, drop some predictions in the comments, and be sure to join us on Friday. We appreciate all the love, especially from the lives that we did at the Olympics. I think a lot of people.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for all the support.
See you on Friday.
Exactly. See you.
Take the day off work.
Yeah.
School.
Watch it in school. That's what I used to do.
AirPod in, just kind of sneak it in.
It's a lot easier now.
Yeah.
You know? Just on YouTube. You don't have to. Yeah. Back in the day when I was in high school, it's tough to be able to watch.